Hi, welcome back to the next episode of Speak. We are going to be talking about the power of storytelling. And I just want to acknowledge the shit sound quality. We're new podcasting bros, okay? And we're getting there. So we're playing around with it. We're going to get there. So hopefully this one is going to be better.
But bear with us, right? Content is solid. We're just tweaking the sound.
Which is why if you're watching the video, I look like I'm about to fly an airplane with my big earphones. And you look like you're in a radio station with your big microphone.
Although I'm not sure they would let me drink wine in a radio station, but we're going to go with it.
Cheersies. Yes.
Cheersies.
Wine and cider. Tits and tinnies, have to say it. Okay, so storytelling. Let's get into it.
Yes. Why the topic? Why do we even care about the power of storytelling? I think on my side, it's probably because I know when delivering any of the messages in safety, particularly, actually not even safety, just in work, whether it's inspiring people, delivering a message, whatever it is, just the results from telling a story as opposed to a direct do it are just better.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think I can't remember which one of us came up with this topic, but for me, it's something. Yeah, I've been looking at recently more as I suppose that thing of a skill side of it, in that the power of communication and storytelling, and it's just that thing of being able to make people feel something, I guess, is the thing, isn't it?
Well, I think that's almost, and we'll go into it in a deeper thing, but I think that's the whole point. Like, why does it work? Why does storytelling just create more gravity and change? And it's because it makes you feel something. And just through research, you know, that the minute you make people feel something and connect to something, it affects their decision making. So I just think it's massive. Have you, in your work, have you ever been moved by a story? Has anyone told you a story in work that you think that's inside and stuck with me? Ever?
Shit, actually, I wish you asked me that like yesterday. I would have thought about it more.
Yeah. Well, I think I think there was a road safety week at Openreach, and typically we used our sponsor and we produced stickers and we did these, campaigns, and we told people it was really dangerous to speed, all these things. And a member of Openreach had lost his son to drink driving. He was crossing a road and a drink driver had taken him down. And so we decided this road safety week to focus on just this story, and how important it was to drive safely and not drink and not speed and all these things. And this wonderful man really bravely told this story about how much his son meant to him. And so everybody that had a child could resonate, everybody that had a brother could resonate, everyone that had a son could resonate. And he took you through the incident, it really took you on the journey, really the story took you all the way through. And then it didn't end at the incident. It was still a continuing story. He was talking about his pain. He was talking about his loss. And he was talking about forgetting his son's voice. That got me. And that his son's friends had reached out with a video clip of him so he could play the video clip and hear his son's voice. And I think 20 years worked in safety, so done 20 road safety weeks or whatever, and don't really remember any of them. I remember that. Like and even just hearing the snippets of that, not even sitting through a 5-minute video of him talking about that, it gets you somewhere different, right?
Yeah, for sure. I remember, and it wasn't somebody I knew telling a story, but I was working in Australia at the time, and we had to do these young worker inductions. And part of the young worker induction was they had to watch the video Remember Charlie. Have you heard of it?
No.
So Charlie is this American guy who had an incident at work. He was working in like an oil refinery or something, chemical something. But anyway, he was in a fire.
Wow.
And like he taught, and so like, oh Jesus fuck, it was horrific. But like his injuries were horrific. And he talked about like his experience, how the incident happened, the fact that like he was always the guy who had his sleeves rolled up to his elbow and all this kind of stuff. And I remember the first time I was told, that I've now seen, I had ended up watching that video loads of times, but the first time I was inducting this young worker, and he was a young Maori kid, and he was probably 17. And we were both sitting there bawling our fucking eyes out watching this video in this induction. We were like, oh my God, this is so emotive, so moving.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like, he talked about the incident, how it happened. He talked about, oh Jesus, the level of detail he went into of his experience of the burns unit and his treatment there. How it affected, like his marriage broke down, his daughter attempted suicide, like huge impact. So yeah, that definitely stuck with me. But then it's even, you know, you meet some people at work and they just are naturally good storytellers.
Yeah.
And I was speaking with a foreman at a construction company, and we were talking about, I think it was like people in proximity to excavators or something like that. And he started telling me a story about how a few years previously he had been operating an excavator and somebody came into his blind spot, and he slewed around. And as he slewed around, it's like he said, I saw the hard hat and then it was gone. And he actually just knocked the guy's hard hat off.
Oh God.
And it was this way that he told it. I was standing next to him on site, just like, and what happened next? And he had like the way he told
the
it.
tender hooks.
Oh, I was like, what the fuck happened next? Like, yeah, like it was, heck, I was like, can you do this in a toolbox talk? And he was like, no fucking way. I was like, damn it. But yeah, so it's that I really love like the people who have that natural ability to tell a story that really grabs you, that really brings you in. Oh yeah.
I think it's really interesting. I think skills can be learned. There are people that are really natural. If I think about, it's really interesting that you say, remember Charlie. Loads of people that have come from like Australasia side will know that, but UK side, there was an equivalent that was Remember Ken. And I worked on a nuclear site and we couldn't get people to wear safety specs for love nor money. Like, didn't matter, it didn't matter. Nobody wanted to do it. And then one day we were called to a town meeting and we turn up and there was a guy at the front in a wheelchair with the black, you know,
the sunglasses
on. And he did the exact same. And I was just thinking about the pattern. And this is, if you're listening and you're thinking about the fact you want to practice storytelling, there is something really patterned around what you've said, the previous story and this one. It's somebody goes into the pre-behavior. So when everything was cool. So you're sort of, you can look around you and think, yeah, that's what it feels like for me now. So look at the pre-behavior, you go into the incident, and then you go into the initial impact. So the pain, the physical pain of it. And then people are going into the really elongated emotional impact. And it seems to be the thing. So remember Ken was at the front and he worked for Coca-Cola. And he had never used safety specs ever, even though he knew he should. And there was some sort of chemical reaction. There was an explosion and it went into his face. And he said the last thing he remembers seeing is the goggles he was meant to wear, just as his vision went. And you're all sort of left in that poignant, oh dear moment. And then he goes into graphic detail, and I'm never going to, I kind of want to, but I don't. like packing eye sockets and things, right?
Yeah, okay. No, you don't
That's
need
enough,
to.
yeah.
I'm queasy as fuck.
And
Don't do that.
everybody, like these massive burly engineers were like just they couldn't cope with the immediate physical impact. And so everyone's already like, you have to stop. And then it goes on to some detail, but there was something that really stuck with me. And that was when his daughter had a baby and he held her for the first time, he couldn't see her. So it's like, I feel her, I can feel that she's a baby, I can hear her, but I'll never get to see her. I never get to see her feet. I won't get to see her little nails. I'm not going to get to see her eyes. And I just thought, oh, it's just not worth it. Like the glasses thing is just not worth it. And I saw and it was, at the time, I was like one female in about 60 men. And the genuine change cross-site, people wore them in places they didn't even need to wear safety specs because they were on. They were also very clever because the product looked like Oakley's at the time. They were very fashionable, and it just said, remember Ken in the lens. And people, his story gets even funnier because later on some sort of TED talk, he admits that he didn't wear the glasses, and Coca-Cola sued him back and got all their compo back, but it doesn't matter. But the behavioural change with it. So, and I think you said something that this podcast is definitely supposed to dig into, and that is, you know, some people are gifted this. But if I remember sitting in that thing thinking, how the hell did he do that? Like, how did he change all these people's minds? Some people learn. I know that I am developing a skill for storytelling, and I'm doing it a lot in terms of just the life and journey. You can get to anywhere from nowhere. And I think you really can hone that skill. And I've spent a little bit of time sort of watching people that are really great at it and thinking, why is Simon Sinek pulling me in? Like, why can certain people sell me products in a different way, and they tend to take me on a story of the stuff that I want to do? And I think you can observe great storytellers and just pick up things that you love from them.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, going back to those, we'll say those storytellers, the ones, the people who have been injured and they then make a career of going to workplaces and tell their story.
Yeah.
It's this thing of like mining their emotion. Like, it's an emotional labor to that, which I think is intense. But also I kind of feel like I have to say that apparently it doesn't actually create lasting change. Those kind of, there's still the element, sorry. Like, it's, look, there's still the element, yeah, fuck that, like that really got me, but sure, it'll never happen to me. So it just, I'm very slow to get those speakers into places that I work now, because I'm like, oh fuck, that's, you know, it's a bit of a junket for a day, but is this where we need to be? No, it's just too far, it's just too down the whole behavior end of it for me. Anyway, whole other topic, but
is it though? Is it though? I mean, I suppose if we're talking about the power of storytelling, the definite thing that we don't want the audience to walk away from is like, I won't bother honing the skill because it's never going to help. Because actually, as much as for that specific bit, and I totally agree with you, those stories, you know, you might slow some of the audience down to that beautiful story, tragic story at Openreach, but in 2 weeks, are they speeding again? You know, that sort of thing. But in the greater scheme of life, of work, I think the story is super important. I think that's why old school, when you used to get buddied with like an elder, as I would say, I get stuck with like Bobby on site, who was about 60 and I was 19. He would tell me the stories. You don't want to do that, love. That's this, you know, this happened to so-and-so, or look at, I'll change his name, I'll call him Jeff, who's got only 4 fingers. That's because this is what happened in this. So, and you learn vicariously and be like, actually, that's, I'm not playing there. That's not worth like me losing a digit or whatever. So I think we do constantly learn from storytelling.
And that's like the passing down of information as well. That's a different thing. That's almost like this social element of like, for thousands of years, that's how we have learned from each other, by telling stories. So Yeah, I'm going to contradict myself probably about 10 times throughout this podcast. Like, they're shit, but actually everyone should be able to do this. It's a really good skill to have.
I think that's that, you know, to hone in on our values. One of them is the fact that we are learning as we talk. One of them is that we are unedited. And I think there is something really important about what we do here in it's not supposed to be a perfect, shiny conversation. It's supposed to be discovery as we go.
Yeah.
And you can have one thought, which is your initial thought, and we can talk and you can be like, oh no, I think I'm changing my mind.
My strong beliefs that I'm holding loosely.
Which means gripping them for dear life. Oh, so
right.
In terms that you used a phrase there, mining emotion, which I found really interesting. And part of this was about how to hone the skill or get better at the storytelling part. And I know you've done some research. I was looking on the masterclass website, masterclass.com, for anyone that's listening. And they were saying there were 7 core parts to really finessing and becoming a master at storytelling. And mining your emotional, mining your personal experience is actually step 4 of like really honing that skill. And let's see if this resonates with you, right? In terms of good storytelling, it was saying step 1 is be really clear on your message. That made me laugh because I know that we want to talk about storytelling, and the way that we really want to do this is we're not going to make a perfect point and land it. We want to have a conversation. We want to take people on the journey of this conversation so they stimulate their own growth and their own questions and their own conversations. So it says, if you're delivering a story, be clear about your message. Not sure. Embrace conflict. I loved that bit in terms of like, if it wasn't easy, don't polish it. For God's sake, don't polish it. Really be honest. If you're telling a story about you can get somewhere from nowhere, it's hard. Please be honest.
Yeah.
Really bring the difficulty in. I think that's the bit that creates empathy.
Yeah.
From the audience, really. Have a clear structure.
I like to meander through my stories. You know?
Yeah, I do. I like to skip on a really windy
I don't
path.
have that solid, like, you know, what do they call it? The hero's journey, that solid arc in every single fucking film ever made.
Yeah, no, that's definitely not me. Have a clear structure is not. Mind your personal experience. So I think you said this, like that's intense, that's emotionally labor intensive. But actually, if you're going to deliver your message and you've got personal experience in that, you're gonna have to own that and be vulnerable, and let that in. Engage your audience. I think that's valid, right? Humor, eye contact. Who are you talking to?
That's the bit that's hard to do, though, isn't it? It's grand to say engage your audience. You're like, oh fuck, right? How? Okay. And then it's like, who is your audience? How big is your audience? What is the context? Are you standing just having a chat with one person? Are you in front of a board of execs trying to like put like we spoke about before, put the story behind the data that's there? Are you actually giving a town hall? Like,
do you know what? I watched a really incredible video that somebody sent me, which does remind me to prep for something on Monday. A Barack Obama giving this really like euphoric speech while he was trying to get Hillary Clinton elected. And at the end of it, he does a big chant. And so he's mined all his personal experience. He's brought it all to life. He's done all this stuff, right? Perfect structure. He's clear about his message. And he's doing this like, are you fired up? Are you ready to go? And like the whole audience is going. And there's just 2 dudes behind him, just like, whatever, like nothing. So engage your audience. I think we have to be really honest. There is never, ever going to be an audience unless it's one person that already likes you. That's definitely going to be in with you on your story. There's going to be people that you lose. There's going to be people that don't come with you. And that's okay. If Barack Obama can stand in front of thousands of people and a couple of dudes behind him on camera are like, not bothered. Like,
they weren't like his security lads, were they?
They were literally like basketball shirt and like, okay. So
they're made of fucking stone. He's a phenomenal orator. Like, how, like, assholes.
He really.
How dare they?
Well, I was fired up, and this dude was like literally 4 foot behind him. Was like, yeah, well, I'll probably get a kebab on the way home or whatever he was thinking. But yeah, I mean, maybe that's one of the things, right? Is be realistic when you talk about engaging the audience. There's so much that you could go into. Who are they? What are they into? What are they here for? Or you could just kind of be you, and the people that are going to come with you, and the people that aren't. And that also comes with confidence, right? And experience, and you can just become okay with that. But yeah, engage your audience was number 5. Observe good storytellers. We already said it, right?
Yeah.
Get out there, look at them. And you're so right. Barack Obama, fantastic speaker. I really love Michelle Obama.
Oh my God. Oh, like, did you
Girl.
listen to her audiobook?
Yeah, no, not yet.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, so it's about 19 hours long, right? And she's just got a voice like fucking caramel. And by the end of it, I was thinking my own thoughts in her voice.
Really?
Yeah, I had
Magic.
internalized Michelle's voice, and I was like, I love her. I love her.
I actually, yes. If Barack ever dies, I'm going to be on one knee, just being like, listen,
Oh,
Michelle, I could be your
100%.
wife.
This could happen.
This could, honestly, I'll treat you well. And then the last one was narrow the scope. Now, this is the bit that we struggle with, I think, because we like to skip, we like to go round. And they're like, keep to the exact point, only accentuate on a straight line the exact points you need to.
Yawn.
Yeah. Right. 100%.
I like it all. Meander.
Yeah.
Meander with me through my story.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think some of those are a bit, I think you could put your own personal spin on those sort of 7 steps, and it's masterclass.com, guys, and just put storytelling in and it'll come up with those. I would say, even as somebody that does do storytelling, although I didn't really realize I was doing it until recently, some of those are like, I'd do my own spin of those. But
yeah,
it's
and
a
like
start of 10.
There's and look, when you go Googling this stuff, obviously, like anything, there's an infinite amount of information out there. There's this guy called David J.P. Phillips,
right,
and he did a TED talk on storytelling, but he also has a website at storytelling.com. This guy was like, I have a vision and I want this website domain name, and he like worked for years to get it. And on it, you can sign up and do like plug in your email and get like an introductory 40-minute class video thing. But it is really good. Like, he gives lots of tips and tricks. But it's this thing about storytelling as a skill, but he really labors the point of, don't get confused with storytelling for the sake of it and not being authentic with it. Because the only reason that storytelling works is when connections happen, and connection happens because it's real. So, and I think a lot of people can get caught up, especially in like kind of the salesy way of storytelling, which is just give you the fucking ick. You're like, ugh.
Yeah.
Whereas it has to be like legit. And then his thing about honing the skill is, he's like, collect stories from your own life, like every day. Have a notes app on your phone, and as you just start noticing things happening, just note them down. You might use them later, you might not. But he was like, stories are happening all of the time. And then you jot them down, and then maybe once a week or whatever, you sit down and you'll kind of go, why was that story X? Why was it funny? Why was it sad? Why was it compelling? How can I retell it? How can I shorten it down? How can I make it impactful? How can I make it more punchy? And then it's just, he said that it's amazing how by tracking your own stories, how then you'll start to notice opportunities to use them, be it in work, be it in the pub, be it wherever. And then it's practice, practice, practice. So I thought that was really good. And
I love that.
Yeah. And then there's this other guy called Vin, I've got to butcher his name now, Jiang. He's an Aussie dude, and he is a magician, but he also does a lot of work around communication. And he has a really good YouTube channel as well, and he's on Instagram too. And his thing is that, like, your voice and the power of your voice, and that your voice is like a musical instrument. and that we don't actually play to the full range of our voice. We don't use it as effectively as we could. And he actually, in this short video that he did, and lads, if we were real podcaster bros, we'd be like, find it in the show notes. We're not fucking doing show notes. It's too much work. But
one day,
video,
one day.
not gonna happen. Google it, lads. Google it. But so he does this video, and he goes, I'm going to stop and I'm going to play this clip. And he plays a clip of somebody like really badly playing a violin. And then he plays a clip of somebody phenomenally playing a violin, and it is actually moving. And he's like, your voice is an instrument. It's in the tone, it's in the pace, it's in the power of a pause, silence. There is so much to it. And then he also talks about using your hands when you speak, but it's not just what I usually do, which is this. For those
I am such a
videos,
gesticulator.
I'm like, yeah, fucking gesticulate everywhere. But his thing is like using your hands and almost lining them up with vowels, in that, like, if you're really trying to like draw out a story, and it's using your hands in this way, and it just adds more layers to it, and it makes you more engaging as a person, because people's eyes are drawn to you then, and people are more focused on the tone of your voice. And it's like, because if you think about it, if you're telling a story and next thing you're getting to this point, and oh my god, this guy slewed around with the machine, and did he hit the guy, and I got really fast, and then what happened next? And that's the power of a story, is, and then what happened next? That's what you want people thinking, to get them hooked in. So his thing is, watch videos of excellent storytellers, practice it, notice what they're doing. When you feel moved by a good story, stop and really go, oh, I'm really drawn in. Why? And I suppose it's a practice of awareness as well, of like, why am I being drawn in? Why do I suddenly feel this way? So yeah, there's like that. There's loads. There's so much out there.
I mean, I think that's my favorite. That's amazing. I love the focus on pace, on silence. I think it's really interesting. I always say it's a British thing, right? And forgive the term, but we politely fill all the silence all the time. And it's really amazing. And actually, in any scenario, in an interview, in a conversation, in an interaction, how much more you'll get out of it. And I don't mean in a manipulative sense. I mean just in terms of quality you will get by not filling a silence. If you're done speaking, stop and just allow something to come. I love the whole thing about hand movements. Like you and I are the same, aren't we? Just like gesticulate everywhere. Yeah. I think it's really amazing to think about how you could use that in that story, even just as you said, to draw out the story. And I thought, even then, I'm just watching your hands thinking, and I'm with you.
And you're following and you're feeling it, and there's so many, because how much of, I can't remember the stat, and I'll make it up, 80%, however much of communication is actually body language.
Oh God, so much. Yes.
So like you can tell the difference. I could be telling a story with my hands in my pockets, or I could bring my hands out and use them as another facet to it.
Do you know, I'm going to say something here that is off piece, but I think so relevant. One of the biggest things that I coach women in the workplace on is pace. And I think there's something locked in there that we feel like we have to get as much out as possible, because we're going to get cut off in a minute, and we're really lucky to be in the room, and we just like it just comes out, and we don't allow a silence, we don't allow the question, because, and I remember watching this horrendous episode of The Apprentice, and there was a girl that went in and she was selling crisps or something to, I don't know, the Hilton Hotel. And I've never seen anything like it. It's probably YouTubeable, but she basically starts talking, and because they don't cut her off in the first minute, she just goes nuclear, and you can't even hear her almost audibly. Oh, no. And she just drives and drives and drives and drives and drives. And because there's no question coming, she just continues to go. And then when she leaves, they're like, we didn't even get to ask a question because she didn't even take a breath. And I worked with an amazing woman, and I'll say this, amazing woman that worked for me in my very recent years. And one of the things I used to say to her in a big meeting that she cared about, take a breath. And as you speak, however fast you're speaking, even if you feel like it's fine, it'll be double. Just pay attention to your speech, just draw it back by half. And even if you feel like you're speaking, the minute you feel like you're slow, it's perfect. Because you're just talking. All right. You own the slot that you're in. That's yours. No one can take it away. And you're not lucky to be in the room. You're brilliant. That's why you're there. And I think that whole thing, the pace thing, I think you could take into all sorts of work life, not just storytelling.
Pace you can take into everything, because it's even with the pausing and the silence. Because this guy, Vin Jiang, was saying as well about filler words and the ums and the ahs and the likes and whatever. And we all do it. And there's part of it that just, and he's like, don't get rid of them all. Like, obviously you want to sound natural. Yeah. But there is an element of polishing it up. And somebody was asking me, like, well, what do I say instead? And he was like, try nothing.
Try nothing.
Try pause. And he was like, the other side of it is, as you're slowing down and you pause and you're panicking, they're like, oh shit, I'm not saying anything. Whereas actually everybody else in the room is just taking in what you've been saying. It's giving people, just give people time to process. Yeah. It's just, and again, that's just another version of just being in your own head and just being, oh my God. And it's like, and nobody's fucking thinking about you because they're all thinking about themselves. Or ideally they're thinking about what you've just said. Yeah. So it doesn't matter that there's a pause.
Yeah. But, I think you'll see on some of the vlogs, podcasts or whatever, I will have that period of silence. And that's not because I've been trained to take the moment. And I really wish I had, actually, because if I'd known that earlier on, it would have been really useful. But I'm collecting my thought before I answer. And sometimes when I first started to just actually think, I'm just going to give myself a minute to think about what I'm going to say or how I'm going to answer this question. Interviews is a really good shout when you're like, oh, I don't want to seem like I'm taking too long over this. But the pause feels ages for you. Yeah. When you listen back, people won't even notice that pause. It was nothing. It was 5 seconds, if that. And it can feel like a lifetime. You think, oh, I'm not saying anything. Just get comfortable in that silence. And if you can do it, and maybe that's one of the things, Elisa, right, is if the audience can practice that in normal speech, in just how they talk to their friends or partners, and they can
safe to fail.
Absolutely, right. Completely safe environment. Practice that pace piece. Practice that using, in the pub, if you're telling a story, use those hands. See if you take people with you. And then you can go into bigger and bigger spaces with that storytelling skill. So there's so many safe spaces to practice the pace, the silence, the pauses. Definitely.
There's 2 other recommendations I have, actually, and they're both podcasts. And one I listened to probably a year or more ago, but it's the Brady Haywood podcast. It's this Irish guy. He lives in Australia. He's like a forensic disaster engineer or something like that. Cool. But he has this so fucking cool. But and also whenever they're Irish, I'm like, we're so proud of you. You did great. But but it's called so the Brady Haywood podcast, and he has a 3-part series on the Pike River mine disaster in New Zealand. Ooh. It is so well produced. But again, it's the tone of his voice. Obviously it's a high level production, so there's music and all the rest in the background. But I swear to God, you are walking into the mine with these people when you are listening to him tell the story. Wow. And you're like, Jesus fucking guys, turn back, because obviously we know what's going to happen. But anyway, it's really good. But so that's over 3 episodes. But then I listened to a podcast yesterday. Declan that I work with sent it to me, and it's by Matthew Syed, the guy who wrote Rebel Ideas or Black Box Thinking, those books. So his podcast is called Sideways. The episode is called 1 in 73 million. It is 30 minutes long. from 20 seconds in, I was fucking gripped.
Really?
Riveted. I mean, 30 minutes, it was, as you said to me on a voice note yesterday, what a fucking journey. It was a journey. Like, I nearly had to pull over the car. I was like, this is mad. And it's just, so yeah, it's 1 in 73 million. The content is heavy, but seriously emotive. And it's just, again, listen to him. Why does it grip you? The topics are intense, but he can cut the story down and still grab you instantly.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I think that from a listener perspective, there is so much in here. So if you want to scroll back, there's podcasts in terms of just the observing physical storytelling. TED Talks are a really great example of watching people deliver. But that sideways one, that's on the hook for the weekend.
So good. I can't wait to hear what you think of it.
Yeah.
So we have come to the end of another episode. We're so good at this, podcast bros. And our next episode is going to be on curriculums. So we are going to be digging into safety qualifications that we've done, but also, I suppose, just maybe qualifications in general, and leaning into that kind of, are they suitable? Are they delivered in a way that actually helps people learn? Do they set us up for success? Am I going to absolutely cut the back off an institution that I went to? Yes, I am. So tune in for that.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode and you join us for the next one.
See ya.
Bye.